Welcome to Los Comics TV. I'm your host, Javier Hernandez. So today we got well, don't we always say it's a special episode? Every episode here is special, unlike other shows you watch. So let me just show this really quick. There's probably going to be a glare on it, so I'm going to tilt it. I think that might help. Some of you may be aware of these, what they call artist editions. IDW is known for putting these out. And what they are is oversized books. And they print. So they take the original artwork. In this case, this is dedicated to Ross Andru, one of the great Spider-Man artists. He had a big run, like a 5-year, 6-year run in the 70s when I started reading Spider-Man, buying them off the rack. Anyway, artist editions, what they do is they collect the original artwork, the real actual art that was drawn on and inked on and lettered, and through various means they obtain it from collectors. That the collectors let them borrow it, and they scan them in very high resolution, and then they print them in these books, so people like me and you can look through it and just awe and gawk at the amazing artwork, the way it was drawn. You see like the pencil marks. Sometimes you see that you can see some white paint applied for mistakes or for effects. And anyway, these are very popular. I love them. I got about 3 of these. There's tons of these out there, and other companies are making them too. But unfortunately, Ross Andru fans, we're not going to look through this book today. I just wanted to share the concept of the artist edition for those of you who may not be aware of those. What I have here is one of our favorite artists. These are my original pages to the original 1998 comic book of El Muerto, the very first appearance. Again, there's probably a glare because it's in a plastic bag, but I will show this. I'll go through this afterwards. But the first book came with the sticker for those of you who were around back in 1998. This is the first. Yeah, but let me put it back in the safe here. The adamantium safe. Anyway, so these are the pages that I drew. If the book came out in 98, I definitely drew these during 1997. I may have even started in late 96. It was a very long process for me back then. Some things haven't changed. But anyway, what I'm going to go through, I have all 30, I think it's 31 pages. I still have the whole complete stack of pages. It's pretty amazing. These are 23 years old minimum. Yeah, the book debuted in February. So actually, in a couple of weeks, it'll be February 2021. That'll be 23 years since the book debuted. So like I said, these pages got to be at probably like 24 years old, right? Because I started them a year before. So I'm just going to go through them and share some thoughts on these. Going back through a lot of memories just looking at this stuff. One thing I'll tell you offhand, you may not notice it. Again, the camera, the lights, who knows. The lettering, well, most of it, this is hand-drawn. But the comic book lettering and the word balloons, it's all pasted on. Ooh, that's an old term, right? In fact, this chapter 1, Dead Man's Party, you'll see that the half of the T and the Y is ripped off. And you see the glues coming undone. I should be a little careful there. So that's 23 years. That's not bad for 32 pages. Only one damaged page from what I can tell with the paste up. But this is pasted in. That's hand lettered. You could tell because I write like a doctor. And then this little caption fell off. You can see I could see a piece of glue here. May not come up on the camera. That fell off. After I scanned it. So I mean, in the comic, it's in there. And then this line here, just fine. You see that the word fine is it's the glue's undone, but the whole strip is still attached. The half of the strip is attached. So anyway, that's got to be taken care of carefully. Anyway, let me just basically go through some of these some commentary here for you. The story takes place in Whittier, my hometown, right? That's east of East LA, I tell people. What does it say here? Tuesday, October 29th, 9:52 a.m. last year, Uptown Whittier, some 15 miles southeast from Los Angeles. So I think that's about right. So this strip here, Uptown Whittier, if you're familiar with the area, this is up on Philadelphia. Greenleaf would be up here, and then this is Philadelphia. So this is currently, it's right now the Whittier Gym. Then there's the alleyway, and then there's a haircut place. I think it's called the Cutting Edge. And next to it is actually, was it Undercity Comics? It's a comic book shop. So for my purposes back in the day, in fact, back in the day, I think it still was a video store. A video store. Look that one up, people. I'm pretty sure it was still a video store. If not, that's what I turned it into. I made it a video store. You can tell it's the year, right? Because I got the Phantom movie poster, the Billy Zane comic book movie. And then I made up a film, The Vengeance of the Chupacabras. And then, so this is Back Alley Comics. It's not a comic shop, it's a little publishing place. I'll explain that in a second. And then I made this a cafe. Because this was a cafe back in the day, I think. It was a cafe and then the haircut salon, which the haircut salon is still there. And then in the background, so if you go to this spot here on Philadelphia, look down the alley, this is a brick building, but I made it, I don't know what you call it, but I wanted to stipple it. And then this one is brick. But you do see this building here, and I hand wrote it. It says Hoover Hotel. I think it's now called the Hoover Apartments, because even back in the 90s, it was called the Hoover Hotel. But I think it was one of those hotels that it's really cheap and people just live there. So it's not really a hotel, I guess. So anyway, so this is an actual place you could actually go to up on Philadelphia, just south of Greenleaf. And then on this street would be, I think, Comstock. This guy here, some of you may not have ever seen this first issue, right? You're probably more familiar with the graphic novel, Days of the Dead, which I should have had a copy ready. It's been out for a couple of years. It's basically a redo of the original stories. But this guy at the time, back 23 years ago, he's like a comic book publisher. So I was kind of drawing me, 20 years ahead. So this guy's in his 50s, which is funny because now when I introduce him in the graphic novel series, I'm going to push him up into his 70s. It's a trip, right? It's going to have to be a much older version of me. I just want to stick myself in the story. Anyway, his name is Adam Gomez. Little play on Gomez Adams, And then, so anyway, I'm not going to narrate the whole thing, but I had to point that out because he hasn't shown up in the Days of the Dead graphic novel yet, so I don't think most of the newer readers, fans are aware of him. There's his friend Evan Esquera, who's a comic book artist. Little flyer here for the Olympic Auditorium, which people have heard me talk about. In the 70s, I was a big fan of wrestling, and it took place at the Olympic Auditorium down in Los Angeles. So let me I'll just start moving these over. So I'm going in order. Page 2, this is the first appearance of Diego de la Muerte. Right there on page 2, first panel. It's always fun to, for the background, if there's a bookshelf, all the book titles in there. Obviously, some of them are books I like. Other ones, I think some are made up. I mean, actually, I don't think there's that many made up. The Alchemist, have you guys read that? Octavio Paz, Mexican poet. Jose Posada, of course, would be there. Volume 1 of Weapon Tex-Mex, Myths of Mexico, Myths, Dolly, Diego Rivera, Rufino Tamayo. Tamayo is one of the great Mexican muralists. The Lorax, Dr. Seuss Lorax, the Bible. Anyway, so just a lot of little things in there. This is something from the old days. You guys will recognize. Remember, we used to buy those little home stereo consoles. So with the 2 speakers, and then it'd have the be a black box with a record player sometimes, a double cassette tape deck, and a radio. Those are always fun when you bought your own, right? Oh, I got my own stereo system. Anyway, there's some nice dated things in this book, the time capsule here. So here are the friends talking. As you know, if you read Days of the Dead, Diego's going to have his 21st birthday, and all the friends end up dropping out for different reasons. They can't make it with him because the whole point was to get him to that festival on himself. So when he crashes in the car, I didn't want to kill the other friends in the car with him. So everyone's dropping out. There's Susie Quintana. She works at Coliseum Records because back in the 80s and the 90s, most of us, I spent hours going to, remember the old Tower Records? There was one in West Covina nearby for me, and there was one in East LA. There was other ones, of course, one in Hollywood and such, but the two nearby ones, I used to just go there for hours and just look through all the DVDs, the CDs, the magazines, books, and then it'd start getting toys later. So I wanted a substitute for Tower Records, so I go, well, Coliseum, that's also a name of a building, right? A tower in a Coliseum. So yeah, she has to drop out. He had just got his tattoo. There's the tattoo. There's a little picture of Pablo from my friend Rody Montijo's comic, Pablo's Inferno. He was doing his comic early on when I got started. Boy, it's interesting. Then Zach, our Zach Silver, his best friend. He's sick. He can't make it out to the party. Yeah, The Scream by Edvard Munch, one of my favorite paintings and such. But all this stuff is back in the day. I was actually using a brush. So right, this is a brush here. Dip it in the ink, and then you literally just start, drawing with the ink. So I used a brush for years and years. Those of you who've known me, and I've done some drawing videos on this channel, I switched to a Pentel Pocket Brush pen. Watch the ink spill out. Oh my god, shouldn't have done that. So you open. I'm not gonna open. You pop it open, and then you put in a new ink cartridge, so you don't have to dip it in the ink and then wash it afterwards. You just, once you're done working, just close it up, and then use it again. These you'd always have to wash. You want to wash it out, hot water, whatever, with soap. Take the ink out so it doesn't dry. But so anyway, an old tool. People still use these all the time, and I keep telling myself I want to go back to using this, but laziness, and I like the effect that this gets. So this is all drawn. Actually, on camera, again, you probably can't see it. I'm looking at some of these pages as I'm looking through these. I don't see a lot of pencil, meaning I erased it really good, or I just used a blue pencil, what they call a non-photo blue. Excuse me if I stuck my head in the shot. These, so they're non-photo because if I draw with it and then I scan it in the computer, and I scan it in what they call like black and white mode, it doesn't pick up the blue. So if I had a bunch of blue drawings underneath, they wouldn't show up here. It would just be the black ink. So Diego, yeah, thinking about his ex-girlfriend here, Maria. And, I used to take the buses a lot. There was a stretch sometime in the 90s where I didn't have a car. I was between cars, maybe about a year or so. So, yeah, I was very familiar with the bus system. So I figured Diego would probably also, not have a lot of access to money. So he'd be taking the buses. And I'd go to Olvera Street quite a bit down, the historic part of Los Angeles. The kind of like the Mexican, the founding of Los Angeles there on Olvera Street. I'd go there a lot for just like research and looking at different books and the art and the Day of the Dead, little skeletons and such. But he goes there to pick up his suit because he has a mariachi suit made up for his Day of the Dead party that he's going to be going to now by himself. So there's an actual shop there there are a couple of shops would have mariachi suits. So again, I would just walk in there, just get the feel of it. Again, it's research. And when you research, I'm sure everybody says this and it's different for everybody, but just because you study something and look at something or read all the books doesn't mean that's all going to be in the story that you're doing. But it just gives you a sense of the environment, right? So yeah, the big Mexican mariachi hats up on the wall and such. So, yeah, more of Diego's friends inside the coffee shop, which was next door to the comic book publisher. So, it's created a little environment there, kind of like a Mr. Rogers neighborhood. El Muerto style. There's Adam Gomez again. Man, I look at that. It's like, well, I don't have a mustache. I just got the little goatee, but and then they're singing Evan and his grandfather, Volver, Volver, Volver. So a bus mystery guy gets out in front of the video store. And this mystery guy is in the graphic novel Days of the Dead. Those of you who read it. So he goes into the hotel, checks in. This is interesting, this little news story. I introduced him here, but I never used him. He's a former masked Mexican wrestler, Tigre Torres, who the backstory is in my head that he unmasks himself because he wants to be a big Hollywood star. so he goes by his real name, Ulises Torres. Kind of like a Schwarzenegger type thing. Like he's a bodybuilder. He gets into movies, becomes a huge star. This guy was a Mexican wrestler, and he didn't want to be like El Santo, where he did movies as El Santo in a mask. He took the mask off, and then something happens where he ends up putting it back on. But that's a whole nother story. Hopefully, I'll see if I reintroduce him to the Muerto world. This is a nice little couple of silent panels here. Makes his way to Whittier High School. That's my high school, which is right down the street from all this stuff. This is all in Philadelphia. So you just go south of Philadelphia and you run into Whittier High School. That's my high school, the Cardinals. Two things about Whittier High School. Former President Richard Nixon, he went to Whittier High School as a teenager. And film buffs, Back to the Future, Marty McFly himself, they filmed it, I think the first one or the second one, probably I don't remember now. The one when he goes back in time to his father's high school, Marty's father's high school. So Marty's dad was at Whittier High in the movie. I don't think they called it Whittier, I'm not sure, but yeah, they filmed right there. When you see in the hallways in the locker, like there's a checker pattern floor, and the lockers right there in the hallway. Yeah, that's our high school. So yeah, of course Diego would go to Whittier High School if he lives in Whittier. Mystery man here on the phone doing some stuff. Diego here talking to Susie at Coliseum Records. That's a character from a friend of mine, two friends of mine, Ruben Gerard and Max Espinoza. A character called Ally. It's like a dark mask, and then it's got like a mesh faceplate, kind of like that wrestler. What was that Dianables, I think. Anyway, moving right along. So yeah, working on these pages, when I look through this, I can't think back 23 years exactly, but a lot of the time I'd be working on these. I was working at Target, I know that for sure at the time. Target stores. I was working there mostly part-time, maybe full-time. I don't remember. It's been so long. But on the days off, I would be drawing these pages, When I worked 8-hour days, I don't know if I worked on it at night. There were long days and I was taking the bus, and by the time I got home, but definitely like looking forward to the days off, like, okay, I got to work on my comic. That's why it took so long. And of course the weekends, right? Well, actually, you work at weekends at the retail store. So whatever 2-3 days off I had, work on the comic. You just, me, like, I want to make comics. So I'm working. I think I was going to school probably part-time. And it's like, but I want to make comic books. I want to make my own characters, my own stories, publish it myself, do it my own, my whole thing. So here's El Muerto getting suited up. Here's Diego getting suited up. Picks up his suit, put it on the makeup, right? The teeth, the cross, and then put on the pants and the jacket. In the graphic novel, you get a full splash page, right? Of him in the costume, which back then, I should have done it. It's easy to say that now, but I didn't. Obviously I didn't do it. But, you learn as an artist, as a storyteller, as a comic book storyteller. Sometimes you want to blow up a page, right? Show the whole page. Like, really, again, I'm not knocking this, but yeah, when he gets the suit on, you should want to see a full page of that, which you do in the graphic novel. Again, I drew that in 2016, 2017, kind of retelling this. I guess 20 years later, you get a better sense of, you're a better artist, you're a better storyteller, you're a better writer, so I think you're going to make a better comic. But I have so much affection for these pages, there's so much. Every brush stroke, when you think about it, is like a memory. It's pretty amazing. So he's driving down the 60 freeway, the Pomona freeway, right, from Whittier down to LA, East LA. So he's heading, was it eastbound? No, westbound, like it says there. And Tezcatlipoca, the god of destiny, is eyeing him, and the lightning, right, the famous lightning, hits the car crashes. And then I wanted to show, like, make it obvious to the reader, like, hey, wait a minute, the seatbelt's there, but Diego's not in the car. And then chapter 2. Continue chapter 2. Where in the world is Diego de la Muerte, or the gods must be crazy? That's something I did. I didn't mention that in the first one. No, see, in the first one, there's only one title, right? Chapter 1, Dead Man's Party. So this I got from Rocky and Bullwinkle. Yes, the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon. I forgot how it went, but there'd be a little, I don't know, 10, 15 minute chapter or whatever, episode, and then it'd go on a cliffhanger, and then the announcer would be like, come back next episode, 4, and then he'd say one title, and then he'd say, and then he'd have a different title. So I always liked that gimmick. I always liked that I always thought it was funny. So when I started doing my first comic, or at least the El Muerto comic, I was going with the 2 title thing, and I still do it. And the graphic novel, man, I should have had the graphic novel with me to pop it open, but I do use, no, do I? No, I guess I don't. Maybe I don't. Sorry. I really should have had it with me. Anyway, back then, 2 titles per chapter. So, again, chapter 2 would repeat it there. Here's, again, I'll just go through this quick because I don't want to make this, I always say I don't want to make the video too long, and then I make it 40 minutes. So yeah, the police tells Zach that, hey, we found your car, because Diego's borrowing his car. We found your car out on the road, wrecked, no one's in there, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, shoot, he knows what happened, is Diego's missing. So he calls all the friends. And he's bummed out, and he's staring at the TV screen. And, there's kind of like a reflection of yourself in the black screen. And then I'm using it as an effect. It morphs into this eye. And we zoom out, and it's Diego, and then he's lying on the floor. It looks like he's falling, right? If you look at it that way, but he's on the floor here. Just imagine the camera moves up above him, like in the film, like where the camera's at right now. Yeah, your point of view is looking down at him. He's waking up on the floor, and he's wondering where the hell he's at. This is, I like this page. It's drenched in black. If you compare it to all the other pages, they're all panels with, a lot of black and white. And it's like, this is always fun to do, and there's a hell of a lot of ink in there. This is funny. He wakes up and have the skull, the god of death, Mictlantecutli, is walking up to him. But you know where I got the idea, or at least in my head, I was thinking of? Believe it or not, there's an episode of the Three Stooges, right? That I'm sure you guys all know what Three Stooges is, 1930s black and white comedy films. And there's one where they're in a haunted house. And I think it's one of the ones with Shemp, because it was Curly, Moe, and Larry, and I think some later ones had Shemp in it, the guy with the really long hair. Anyway, maybe it was Curly, but I think it's, so either Curly or Shemp wakes up or walks in a dark room, and it's pitch black, and he's right there in the front. And then you see the skull just kind of floating in the background. And it's a cool effect, right? It's supposed to be a comedy, but it's like this skull is literally floating. Turns out the lights turn on or something. We find out there's a bird stuck in it, so the bird's wings are sticking out of the side of that's why it's floating. But when I drew this, I wasn't trying to like make an homage to it, but that popped in my head. Like I always remember that skull floating, so it's coming out of the shadow. So anyway, that's a little, I don't think I've ever told anybody that part, so that's a little tidbit there. You notice on Diego's costume also, he's got the white swirls on it, but in the first issue, I gotta check the second issue, but I used to put these little round swirls in it, right? These Tim Burton-esque little swirls, and it's on the side of the leg too. The only reason I dropped it was like, the more, when you see the book printed and such, like, well, it's printed much smaller and he gets smaller, and then you don't really see those, and then, it's a lot of extra work. And then I do I like the swirls, but at the same time, I like just those pure little white lines on his suit. So that's why they dropped out. Which I kind of like that, because if you look at a lot of old comics, especially the old school ones, like the early Batman or even early Wolverine or Spider-Man, the costumes are like, they look one way in the first issue, then they evolve a bit. Like even those artists were like simplifying it or making it better or whatever. So I like that the original Muerto has a little different look. Not just the way I drew it, but in the design. At least that's going to be the main feature there. And then I used to accentuate these black, like, cheek marks. But to me, they were kind of painted on, I think. Yeah. And I got rid of them, right? And then the paint to me would not go down to the jawline, but, like, close to it. So, ended up changing that. Anyway, we'll call this El Muerto Year 1. So he finally meets the god of death, Mictlantecutli. You know, again, it was always my intention to introduce some Aztec gods to the comic, which back in '98, again, was a rare thing. You would see sometimes they pop up in different comics. I mean, the mythology was always in comics. Thor, Hercules, they've been around the comics forever. But, you know, it was just rare that people would use Aztec or Mayan or even anything south of the border mythological characters in comic books, you know, here and there in movies, I guess. But anyway, so it was really fun to play with that. So, you know, I designed my own version of Mictlantecutli. Obviously, I was looking at a lot of books. There was internet back then, kids. So, yeah, I'm sure I saw images there. But it was mostly a lot of books. But I ended up, you know, I mean, who knows what, right? I mean, it's people's interpretation of these Aztec gods, just like the way we say, well, that's not the way Jesus looks or God looks, the way this guy drew him or he drew him. So I figured the same thing with this, and I kind of made it my own. Kind of also took a little bit from Jack Kirby and the fact that Jack Kirby from Marvel Comics would like work on Thor. Well, he did a lot of just designs just the way he saw them, you know, based on whatever research he did. So I wanted to do the same thing with my characters. But a lot of these patterns and the motifs, it's just by looking at tons of Aztec books on the designs and the drawings and such, the codices, and just taking little bits from here, from this wardrobe and that image, and then make it my own thing. Which, you know, basically the god of death, you are going to make a big skull, a skull for the head. I love this angle of him, just looks so imposing. And I just love the big chunkiness of the head and the bone and everything. Yeah, a lot of black on this page too. It's a nice page. Let's see. And then, yeah, he gets thrown across and then ends up at the feet of Tezcatlipoca, the god of destiny. Again, a lot of this is just my own invention, taking these patterns. I saw these little dot patterns on one thing, and these would not be crosses, obviously, like we're thinking a Christian cross, but I did see these little cross marks on some drawings, some codices, like on some of the fabrics of their clothing. And I saw these interesting eye designs. It looks very Steve Ditko-esque, but it's like a sleepy eye, and then these little swirl things around it. So I figured, yeah, if he's the god of destiny and his face is covered, his eyes are covered, maybe he's got these things that he sees through or something. You know, who knows? Just throwing in little things on it. And then, so Tezcatlipoca, the way he's been described and shown, he'd always have like a black obsidian glass black mirror around his head or on top of his head, and then he'd have one in place of his foot. But some would actually draw it like literally, it's like they cut off his foot and they got like a mirror with the, you know, the handle and the round mirror part, which I thought, well, that must be awkward walking on that. But so what I did, it's like, well, he's got to have one foot that's replaced by the obsidian. It's literally like a glass foot, right? It's almost like a prosthetic. And then if he had one above his head, I figured it'd be on his throne, this huge circular obsidian mirror. And I surrounded it by the different Aztec codices. So anyway, again, it's all my invention based on different things I've seen and such, and interpreted, and just kind of how I wanted him to look. So they're getting ready to do the sacrifice, right? He sees he's got a tattoo, and he throws him on the altar. So this altar I invented based on, you know, it was like an Aztec ceremonial wall like that with all these skulls on it. I just decided to wrap it around a little table. And I've seen different interpretations of when they would sacrifice the victims. You know, sometimes it's like a circular table, a circular stone, or maybe it's more like just a rounded, lumpy stone. So I just made it kind of shaped like a pyramid, Aztec pyramid, slanting up. Again, you know, I'm not doing a, how should I put it, historical 100% representation of the ancient peoples and culture and mythology. I'm just interpreting it my way. And there's other people doing a lot of great work nowadays where they're literally trying to keep as close as possible to like what they see in the Aztec codices and try to keep the characters just like the way they were drawn back then, which is fine. But I definitely, from day one, I wanted to have that freedom to really, again, like Jack Kirby, to just really bring in a lot of my own ideas and really shape it as its own. It is a superhero comic in a way. Well, I mean, not in a way, it is. So there's that aspect of just designing really interesting characters and situations and such. And then, yeah, they're both going back and forth, and Diego's right in the middle. Look at this right here. Damn it, whatever you two are planning, get it over with. I'm sick of this. And of course, I didn't want to put the S word in there, so he gets cut off there. And then then we come to the two key pages, like the two money shots. This is actually one of the favorite pages I think I've ever done. And it's all silent except for sound effects and such, and him screaming no. But yeah, the key moment of the origin where he gets his heart, when he gets the blade, cut through his chest. The god of death reaches in, pulls the heart out. Hopefully you could see it. It does get a little busy there. And then he plops it in this jar Tezcatlipoca holds, and then he reaches out, Mictlantecutli, to Diego. He's still got the skull makeup. And then basically what happens is he kind of just burns the white skull face on him. So now he permanently has that white skull face on him, and then his eyes are blackened. But I want to point out something here. These little dots here, I got it's an old trick. I got a toothbrush, an old toothbrush, not the one I used at the time. Pour some black ink on it, and then I would just flick it, so it would spray these like a spray pattern on it. I did it here and here, and and here. Then I'd go over it later with some white paint. Yeah, I'm sure I got a brush and just painted these. I wanted the ribs to stand out, and I just threw some white paint on the heart, so it popped out visually. So anyway, like I said, that was fun to draw because now I was using different tools and stuff for different effects. And on this one, I mentioned paste up. This is a Jose Posada, Katrina, right? And it's I'm not going to pick at it, but this is a photocopy. I copied it from a book. I made a photocopy of it. I cut it out, enlarged it the right size, so it's cut out along the edge and it's just glued on. In fact, yeah, look at, if the back side is folded over and it's taped. So that's 23-year-old tape. But the front side is glued to the board. And then I also photocopied these Loteria cards. I got these blue marks here so I can keep my page in the camera range. I photocopied the Corazon and La Muerte card and shrunk them down and pasted them on there. And everything else is hand-drawn. So there we go. Then they send him back to Earth. Boom, another lightning bolt. And then the next chapter, what have I done to deserve this? Or today is the first day of the rest of your afterlife. I think this is a Pet Shop Boys song. Yeah, Pet Shop Boys have a song called "What Have I Done to Deserve This?" I think. If not, it's a line in a song. But I figured that was a perfect title, and of course, a play on the words. First day of the rest of your life. So here's the last chapter. Back on Earth. Yeah, now he's got the black eyes, and that skull face is permanent. These guys are called Todd and Rob. For those of you who know Image Comics, I'll just leave it at that. There's two kids there running around. Makes his way to the bath, so it goes to the bathroom, and if you saw the movie El Muerto, same thing happens. He tries to wash the white face off, and he's realizing that's permanent now. It's like, oh man, and it's checking out his eyeball, trying to rub off the teeth, and he's like, I'm screwed. Yeah, fun stuff. Checking his pulse. Yeah, I'm dead. Estoy muerto. Yeah, there it is. I'm dead. In the bathroom, it's always fun drawing like certain environment, like making the bathroom all gritty. The toilets are slimy. The trash. I love doing this stuff on my walls. I'm sure you guys have noticed. These are actually bullet holes, I think, right? Because it's out in the bad part of town. Aryan Alliance graffiti. The Elm Street Dreamers, Hoppers 13, a little reference to Jaime Hernandez's Love and Rocket stories. But yeah, I just love drawing all the little details, and especially when it's like a dirty place, the little stuff like that. So there's our hero back on Earth a year later and not know what the hell's going on. Yeah, this right here. Oops, sorry. This is where he's reading the paper, so he sees a headline. Look at that. I lost a whole year. So he knows that it's been a year later that he's been returned. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but this stuff here, this is all inked. These hands, Mictlantecutli's hands, the god of death, it's done. It's just left in pencil. So I didn't ink these hands because I wanted this cool effect where Diego's being separated from his friends. So I thought if I had these, kept the hands in pencil, it'll have a ghostly look. You know, nowadays you can just scan it in Photoshop and lighten the black ink on the hands and lighten it up. But and the pencil held up. Yeah, it's pretty. As long as I guess you don't smear it, it'll stay there forever. It's gonna outlive us, right? So he's got to go to the store. Super Uno Mart made that up, just a generic. You know, you see these stores all around town. At least I do. From LA, from Whittier to LA, East LA. You know, Supermart or, you know, Dollar Mart. So it's kind of like a giant Walmart version of that, the Super Uno Mart. So he goes in the store to buy some clothes and makeup. This line here, I got to share it. She's like, he's in line, right? He's got the white skull face buying all this stuff. Okay, I see it. You're supposed to be that guy from Nightmare Before Christmas, right? When we made the movie, that line is literally in the film. It's the old lady in a store selling them stuff, and she just looks like Nightmare Before Christmas, right? So it always got a laugh in the audiences. So I love that line. I'm glad it made it in the film. Then he's back in the bathroom at the park, putting the makeup on, and he's got to have the sunglasses on. And now he's walking around like, what the hell am I going to do now? Then a car pulls up, and it just turns out that this guy Kent is driving. His name's Kent Rorschach, right? You know, the name I came up with I was, you know, thinking of the Watchmen at the time, Rorschach. Well, it's such an odd name, it stands out. And then Kent, as in Clark Kent. So Kent, the first superhero, and then the newest superhero at the time, right? Like my character. So that's where that name's from, Kent Rorschach. I don't know. I'm sure most comic fans, when they read that, they get the two references immediately. So it turns out Kent is driving down to Mexico, and Diego just to figure out what's going on with himself. He can't just walk back to his friend's life. Hey guys, I'm back. At least that's what he thought. He hitches a ride with the guy, so they're on their way down to Mexico, hitching a ride to Mexico, and then, you know, this little fun thing, the shading in the sunglasses, it morphs into the El Muerto logo, and that's the end. That's the end of the first issue. Man, that's the first El Muerto story back in the day, right? Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Let me share one other thing here. Let me share this first here. So, yeah, this was the first. So then, you know, those pages were made to. Be careful with this thing. I only have about 5 of these, I think, left. These are very rare. So this is the first comic. And then here are the pages. There's that missing word balloon. The dialogue. Yo, Easy. Diego, line 1. This is his nickname, Easy. Evan Easy Esquera. Anyway, there's all the pages in there. And there's some extra stuff in the back. Some, you know, not much actually, just this page. And then I reprinted, this is actually my first story I ever did. El Muerto came out in 98, but the year before I did this 3-page story feature. I had to make up a new character, Weapon Tex-Mex. I was invited to participate in an anthology. My friend Rafael Navarro told me about it. And he goes, hey, you know, they're taking submissions, like 3-4 page stories. So I came up with this character because I didn't want to use El Muerto because I was still working on him. So it's a humorous political story, Weapon Tex-Mex. So I reprinted it in this, you know, first issue, kind of just to. That's why at the bottom it says all this, and would you believe Weapon Tex-Mex? You say you want a resurrection. So that was 1998. I did about the initial run of these. I printed 300 copies, and then I don't know when, 6 months later, a year later, whatever, I did another like 150 because I was running out. So that's why I tell people there's not more than 500 of these. So I'm pretty sure it was 300 and then 150. So it's most likely only 450 copies of this in the entire world. So this was 98. In 2002, some years later, I reprinted it again. But this time I upped the budget. So I did this nice nice print run, 3,000 copies with color covers. Here's the cover I drew, a new cover. My friend Rafael Navarro actually colored it on his computer. One of the first times I saw computer coloring. You know, that was pretty neat. I did a new title page, and then again, here's the comic. And then there's some extra stuff in the back, editorial page. I created another character for this called Elastico, just a rubber stretchy character. My friend Michael Loshinker did a pinup. And yeah, just a quick 3-page. I just want to have extra stuff. And then editorial pages talking about the first couple of years of El Muerto, some early sketches of the character, and then the manga Muerto, and I had done 1 or 2 of those already. Another piece from my friend Michael, based on those old Marvel comic and DC comic Twinkie ads. So I created this thing called Tio Chango's Churros. I gave Michael the logo, or I pasted it in after, and then he just did a quick story with that. And pinups, wow. Stephen Butler, for all you comic fans. Yeah, Stephen is still active on Facebook, more than ever, doing commissions. And he had a pretty good run on Spider-Man in the 90s, I guess it was, or 2000s. The whole Clone Saga. He did a lot of stories with this Scarlet Spider. He's very well known for that. Anyway, I befriended him some years when I made the first El Muerto and asked him for a pinup. It's like, wow. So, got pinups from other friends of mine. Sam Heady, for those of you who know your independent comics of the last 10, 15 years. It's an old Sam Heady pinup. And Carlos Saldana. I've mentioned him, I think, on this channel before. And my friend Rody Montijo painted the back cover. So anyway, those are the 2 books that came out from the original pages. You know, from this comic, I did an interview on NPR in 2001, I think. And then, you know, the right person heard the interview. Brian Cox, the writer-director, eventually led to a movie, right? So from this comic, believe it or not. So anyway, the comic was done because I wanted to make a comic book. I wanted to tell my own stories. I wanted to do something with Aztec mythology, Day of the Dead folklore. This is the original art. I don't know if I mentioned that. So, right, the original art for this cover. Yeah, I still got it. And check this out. I went to my underground bunker vault. Excuse me. And let's see if this shows up on the camera all the way. I think it does. Let's see. Yeah, because this paper is actually bigger. I don't know where I got it from. It's 14 inches by 17. Most comic pages are 11 by 17. So some of the, I knew some of this art would cut off. And so, but I think, let me see. I think I have it within the proper range of the camera. But anyway, this is pasted on. I don't know if you could tell. I had to print this out, the logo. This is printed out and pasted on. That's pasted on. That's pasted on. This is pasted on. The Diego de la Muerte on the tombstone. This was printed, right? Black background with white letters. That's right here. And that's pasted on. That's handwritten, obviously. And it's all hand drawn and inked. But this is super. I've talked about this before on my social networks. Like, this is, I mean, the pages, of course, it's so much work. But there's something about the cover. It's like a real special heirloom for me. Again, I've had it 23 years. And it's probably one of my prized possessions. And it's, something I created. It's not like this cool action figure from my childhood or something. Definitely one of my prized possessions. For me, it's a historic thing. It's really, really, really special. So anyway, I think that's it. I mean, yeah, I can't take questions here, right? So if you have any questions, put them in the on the page here on the YouTube channel. Yeah, I'll definitely answer them. But that was a deep look at the original El Muerto actual pages, and talking a little bit about the story and such. But it's nice to go through this stuff. So many years later, like I said, there's that page. It just looks good. It looks great in the book. It looks great in person. Yeah, these 2 pages are probably my 2 favorite to have, at least as an artist, to have done. But every one of these, even the, every story is going to have just regular pages, people just talking, right? Just the people at a coffee shop or something. So they're not like the exciting pages as far as action, but they're all important to the story. But even more, they're important to your story, your, I don't know, your journey as an artist, right? You still had to draw them. You had to think of the idea, the characters, the interactions, and they're all pieces to a puzzle that's still being built today, right? This is nice. The inside, let me see if I could, I guess if I put it right directly in the middle of the camera, it's a split Diego and a skull. Pretty much like this cover, actually, later. You know, a couple years later, actually, yeah. Yeah, it's a very similar concept. Very similar concept. Interesting. Okay, cool. So I think that's it for me for now for this. So thanks for watching again. I always appreciate you guys watching, tuning in, and sharing it. I always appreciate if you guys hit the like button here on the YouTube page. And yeah, if you share it, it's even better. It's just as much appreciated. And of course, any comments or questions you put down, I always try to make sure I answer them, because if you're nice enough to ask something, I definitely want to be nice enough to respond back. So thank you so much, everybody.